Okay, Councilmember Mendelson.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to make a comment. I expect we're going to get more testimony along these lines criticizing aspects of some of the task force plans. I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I don't want to defend any of the task force plans and say that all of them came up with the best proposals or best solutions. But the law with regard to ANCs, and I think many of you know this, say that if an ANC is affected, it's entitled to notice and great weight. And there were many times when I was an ANC commissioner where I weighed in, or our commission weighed in on an issue that was within another ANC, an ANC that was adjacent to ours, maybe even an ANC that wasn't adjacent to ours, but somewhat nearby, but in which we argued that we were affected. And in the end, that's, well, you know, the bottom line with regard to the law, you're affected. Ms. Levine, you know, I very much respect your activism, but your testimony got me thinking about this. And it makes sense that residents who are near Tenleytown would be in the ANC that includes Tenleytown. Of course, there are residents on both sides of Tenleytown, east and west, actually north and south, and they could argue that, well, they should all be in the same ANC, and then where do you draw the line? I think part of the problem here is that the line's changed. And, you know, did it need to change? But a line has to be drawn somewhere, and in the end, if you are affected by something that's proposed in Tenleytown, even though that's not your ANC, you can go to your new ANC and say, look, we're affected by this. And in fact, you'll recall many years ago some of the development fights on Wisconsin Avenue where the Forest Hills ANC and the Cleveland Park ANC and the AU Park ANC and even the Gloven Park ANC all passed resolutions that were pretty much the same, taking the same position, weighing in on these development projects. The other thing I want to say is that, you know, I hear the criticisms of some of these task force recommendations, and I get a sense of what some of the flaws are in some of the SMD proposals. But think about what the process is. Now, I can't speak for my colleagues, the two co-chairs of the committee. There are only 3 of us on the committee. But if we start to reach in and redraw some of the SMD boundaries that were proposed by the task forces, to some extent, I don't know, it probably changes from one SMD to another, we're going to be getting into this jigsaw puzzle where changing the boundary for one SMD now affects another SMD, and we're going to be doing the drawing. And I know Bloomingdale. I don't know it as well as the residents of Bloomingdale, but I don't think you want me trying to figure out where lines are drawn. And that may not be a good example because the issue there seems to be pretty clear, which is the reservoir. But this is true with a lot of the testimony we're going to hear, which is, you know, the boundary wasn't quite right. You know, one of you, Ms. Dixon, you testified with regard to, well, you're closer to Rhode Island Avenue than you are to Catholic University, Brookland. And that may be true. The line's got to be drawn somewhere. If you are affected, you can go to your ANC and say, look, we are affected, and so therefore, the Brookland ANC has got to weigh in on the Woodridge Post Office, for example. But for us to start changing those boundaries, you're going to have Councilmember Evans, who is a very able council member and a very senior council member for Ward 2, and Councilmember Michael Brown, who's an at-large council member, and me, and I'm sitting here saying, I don't know your neighborhood as well as you do, trying to figure out where to draw those lines. And we're going to get some other folks upset, because it is a jigsaw puzzle of approximately 300 SMDs. And you start changing one, you're going to be changing others. So there was a process. And